Well, hello there, you scrublords, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing the recent controversies, both of them, regarding the Fix the Game in 1.91 and some of my thoughts on that, and the German vehicles that were recently announced to be hidden from the tech tree in the upcoming patch. So, as of this last week, we've seen this hashtag Fix the Game in 1.91 pop up. And I wanted to say, first and foremost, that this won't work. And that I don't really support this idea of spamming Gaijin with an incoherent hashtag that ultimately doesn't actually do anything. Gaijin will not fix the game in 1.91. In fact, I don't think that they will fix the game in 1.93. The earliest that we could see a difference, that I could see them dropping everything and trying to fix everything all at once, would be 1.95, and even then that's highly unlikely. So this idea that Gaijin is supposed to drop everything, all of their development, throw everything away, and suddenly try and fix a bunch of issues with the game in less than 3 weeks, because, well, they said we have a little bit over 2 weeks before those vehicles are removed, so I am assuming the patch is coming out in about 3 weeks. Yeah, it's not feasible. It's not realistic, it's not feasible, it's not going to happen. I can tell you that right now. That being said, there are issues that Gaijin needs to address. I'm going to give an example here, but I also want to see further examples from you guys down in the comments section. And I don't just want to see fix the game, or this game is trash, so I'm not going to play it anymore. I want to see, here is an issue, here is how we can potentially fix it. So here is my example. My biggest issue with War Thunder at the moment is the War Thunder Ground Forces map selection and map rotation based on their tiers. A vast majority of the maps in the game are not very good. In fact, their map design for a vast majority of the maps in the game is absolutely atrocious. A perfect example of this is actually low tier and top tier matchmaking. Starting with low tier, there is no reason why a brand new player to War Thunder should be faced with a map like Fulda Gap or Maginot Line. With reserve vehicles and low tier vehicles, I would say tiers 1 to 3, you do not want to see a map bigger than a couple kilometers squared. And the reasoning for this is quite simple. Brand new players to the game are not interested in driving for 5 minutes to see the enemy. What they're interested in doing is getting out there and shooting some tanks. And sticking them on large maps like Maginot Line, while historically correct, are simply not fun. And while I am a big proponent of realism within the game, and personally I do not mind the large maps at low tiers, I know that there are plenty of brand new players who do. And there are plenty of not so brand new players that do. Now at top tier, the situation is exactly the reverse. The engagement distances are simply far longer at top tier. I mean, we are talking vehicles that have point-blank ranges of about 1,200 meters in a vast majority of cases, sometimes even higher than that. And by point-blank range, I mean the maximum range that which you can simply put the gun on the target and hit it. And at top tier, it's pretty darn far. And what that creates, in addition to having much higher penetration rates, much heavier armor, and also having significantly higher power engines and transmissions, means that the vehicles react faster, they move, they play faster, they shoot farther, and in a lot of cases, they actually reload quicker than their low-tier counterparts. What does this mean overall for the maps, though? It means that if you have a very small map, it is actually extraordinarily easy to overrun the enemy opponent as they get, let's say they drive forward and they get blown up, and they come in with their second wave. Well, they're already on the back foot, since it's taken time for them to get up to the front. Not much time, but time enough for one team to push forward and take a lot of ground. There is a lot less back and forth at top tier that you tend to get a lot of with the middle and lower tiers. And as a result, you need the room to have that nice back and forth action to keep from one team simply overrunning the other and spawn camping them into submission, which frankly is boring for both sides. It's frustrating for the people being spawn camped, and it's boring as hell for the people who are doing the spawn camping. In addition, it also hurts people that simply don't have the reaction times anymore. I know multiple people who are significantly older than I am who play the game, and they just simply can't keep up with the top tier gameplay when it's on those smaller maps. The gameplay moves so much faster than what they are capable of handling that it becomes virtually unplayable for them. More significantly, however, it also hurts people with poor internet connections. Not everybody is blessed to live in a first world country with great internet, or even a second world country with great internet, for that matter. As a result, those with high ping also tend to get shafted by these small maps, meaning because they are so much more reliant on those heavy reaction times, when in fact they are sometimes upwards of 2 or 3 seconds behind what everybody else is doing. In that sort of a situation, even being over 100 megs a second slower than your opponent will mean almost certain death in a corner fight. Which, by the way, these shorter engagement distances forced into the smaller maps throws away any advantages that any of these top tier vehicles may bring to the table, with the exception of the Leopard 2A5 and its exceptional turret armor. And that is an exception, not the rule. A vast majority of the vehicles at top tier have massive weak spots or very, very little actual effective armor to protect against these high performance projectiles at very close ranges. Those pieces of armor are generally meant to work at ranges upwards of at least 1 kilometer, if not 2. And when you get within 500 to 200 to 100 meters of an opponent, hell, if you're sitting on a corner and waiting for one guy to make the first move, you've kind of thrown away all of your advantages as a top tier MBT. You've thrown away your mobility, you've thrown away all potential armor protection, unless you're the Leopard 2A5, which is, again, the exception, not the rule. And at that point, you've effectively turned it into a reaction time game, where whoever has the fastest reaction time, or the better internet connection, wins the fight. Now, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any sort of close encounters among these vehicles whatsoever. They're going to inevitably happen. But what I'm saying is that focusing on a single type of map, or a single type of engagement distance, rather, for an entire map, is simply bad map design. It does not account for the large amount of varying types of vehicles we see within the game. In fact, all it rewards are those vehicles that react quickly, have extremely heavy armor, and decent guns. That does not account for vehicles that may play a little bit more defensive. It does not account for vehicles that are faster, but less armored. It does not account for vehicles that have much better guns, but sacrifice mobility. It does not allow for any variety. And that's not how you balance a game. So again, how can we fix this? Number one, remove maps that force one specific playstyle. In addition, we need to see more maps added to the game that allow for a variety of playstyles. Not just long-range engagements, but also medium-range and short-range engagements. In fact, Maginot Line is the best example of this. And while I know I was just bashing it earlier at very low tiers, in a vast majority of other tiers, say tier 3 and up, Maginot Line actually represents the best balanced pretty much any of the maps we see in game, along with El Alamein. With Maginot Line, you have the town, which is a very short-range engagement area. You have the Middle Highlands area, which is good for medium-range engagements, and then you have the open fields to the east, flanked by the two ridgelines, which allow for long-range sniper-type engagements. And the middle area can affect both sides to a certain degree. That is good map design. So, if we are going to give Gaijin a hashtag for them to listen to, let's try the hashtag please consider. And then list your argument and list a solution. And do it in a calm and constructive manner. Simply screaming at them to fix the game or your game sucks isn't going to change anything. In fact, it just makes Gaijin ignore you. Or, in the case of their social media guy, roast the crap out of you. So unless you like getting roasted, I support this idea that if we are going to do a hashtag, let's make it a constructive one. And to give credit where credit is due, this is ripped straight off of MikeGoesBoom. It's a great idea. Hashtag, please consider. Remember that. Now, moving on to the next topic of discussion. The German vehicles being removed, namely the Panther II, the Coelian, the 10.5cm Tiger II, and the mouse. Now, the first three I can understand. They mentioned some time ago that they were planning on replacing those vehicles. Now, since we didn't hear anything between up until this last week and then, I didn't think they were actually going to go through with it. But it looks like they are. So in that case, if you want those vehicles, you're going to have to grind them out and at least get some RP points into them before 1.91 drops. And they said you have a little more than 2 weeks. So expect that to be pretty soon. Now, my biggest issue with this whole German vehicles being removed thing, it's not even so much the addition of the vehicles like the M48A2C and the Ostwind 2, and the reorganization of the tech trees and so on, that bothers me. It's more or less what they said about the mouse. They're removing the mouse under the claim that the mouse is too difficult to balance. Excuse me? In fact, the solution is actually sitting right in front of you, Gaijin. It's to do something that the community has been telling you to do for the last year and a half, actually, since you have actually implemented this system in the first place, and that is to decompress the battle ratings. Now, their reasoning for not doing that is that it would make the queue times too long. And I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say I don't mind waiting an extra minute or two in the queues if it means that the gameplay I get is actually a lot more fun in the first place. And I guarantee you, Gaijin, that if you start decompressing the battle ratings and actually routinely balancing the game and keeping up with battle ratings and making little changes here and there at a time, as far as balancing the game goes and not just bug fixes, people will start to come back. If people look at the game and go, oh, Gaijin is actually looking to seriously balance the game and do it on a routine basis rather than all in one go every 6 months or so, then, well, maybe I will give the game another go. Maybe I will play the game a little bit more. Well, they're doing such a good job, or hey, they're making a real effort here. Maybe I'll throw some cash their way. Maybe I'll buy some Golden Eagles. Maybe I'll buy some premium account because I'm actually enjoying the gameplay now. There are much better ways for increasing your revenue, Gaijin, than introducing the flashing new top-tier premium vehicle every 3 months. But going back to the mouse, the solution is simple. The 8.7 battle rating spam that we see right now with a lot of those premiums in that specific battle rating, simply move up the top-tier vehicles from 10.0 to 11 or 12.0 or whatever, bump them up significantly, and then bump those 8.7 vehicles to 9.0 and leave the mouse where it is. You don't have to touch it. In fact, you don't have to change anything for the mouse. Leave it alone. Don't remove it from the tech tree. Don't hide it. It simply fix the issues above it by bumping that bracket up into a new bracket where those vehicles will simply face themselves, and then have the top tier bracket for those top tier vehicles that should face themselves. You do that, and I guarantee you, the mouse will suddenly become relevant and not overpowered. Because there are plenty of vehicles between the mouse's battle rating and and even at 6.7 that can really do a lot of damage to the mouse. In fact, there are vehicles that are of even lower battle rating at 6.3 that could do significant damage to a mouse. So it's not actually that difficult to balance, Gaijin. It just requires a little bit of thinking. And you know what? Maybe consider asking the community first about these sorts of things. Maybe say, hey, we're thinking of removing these vehicles. What are some other solutions? Can you guys give us any feedback? And then direct us to the place where we can do so. So overall, instead of screaming hashtag fix the game in 1.91, use the hashtag please consider, and then give them constructive criticism. Not rude criticism, polite, constructive criticism. German vehicles being removed, for the most part, I'm fine with it. But the mouse, the mouse needs to stay. There's no reason why you can't balance it outside of just laziness. And with that, I'm going to leave it there. And if you guys have any further ideas for things that need to be fixed and solutions for those problems, leave a comment down below with the hashtag please consider, and I'll do my best to pass them on. And spread this, by the way. Put it on the forums. Spread the hashtag around on Twitter. Ping them and say, please consider problem X, solution Y. We may actually get somewhere. So without further ado, this has been Many Miles Away. Keep your tracks checked, keep your binders in place, keep around the tube, and I will see all of you guys in the next video and or stream. Take care, everybody.